more for you, you feel it. You know it. This is your life, and it's time to go from contender to champion. This is the show. John Madsen.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm your host, John Madsen. This is the show. Welcome back. I have an important topic for you today. I'm going to talk all about creating a high-performance culture. So if you're a coach, if you are in business, if you're in upper level management, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're trying to create a community, you already have heard the term culture, and chances are you don't know how to build it. So I'm going to build it around a framework that you're going to be able to remember, and I'm going to share stories about some of the best and worst cultures I've ever been a part of and what the commonalities were between the best teams I played on and the worst teams I've played on. Now, as you guys know, I own an in-person gym. Creating culture in the community is super, super important. I also am a coach in this online movement. I call it a movement because we are getting people to move, and without culture we have nothing. So we want to talk about that today, and I think it's going to be very beneficial for most of you. Even if you're not an entrepreneur, even if you don't have your own business, if you're a part of a community, if you want to create a better culture in your workplace, this podcast is going to be great. If you want to share this episode with somebody who's in a position to create culture, then please do so. But the one thing that I think that most people get wrong when we talk about culture is that they believe that winning's fun. And I'm here to tell you that winning isn't as much fun as it is relieving. And I know that sounds very pessimistic from a normally optimistic point of view, but it's true. When I was playing on the 2004 Utah team, when we went undefeated, it wasn't like winning gave us this feeling of just the most fun thing in the world. Yes, we celebrated. Yes, after the game was over, we had fun. But I'm here to tell you that fun lasted a very short amount of time in comparison to the feeling you get when you lose games. Let me say that again. The good feeling that winning gives you is nothing in comparison to the shitty feeling that losing gets you. And this is something that you really have to feel to understand. When we won, we were happy for a moment, but it was all about what's next. And Urban tried to do whatever he could to help us enjoy the feeling of winning. We had championship Mondays, or we called it something like that, where we would get steak and shrimp, and it was a great dinner, and we'd celebrate the win on Mondays that we had on Saturdays. But we could feel from the top, Coach Meyer, that winning was really just a relief. We wanted to get that game over, put the W in the record book, and move on to the next game so that we could get that one over with too. And when I think about it like that, I almost wish that it wasn't this way, but it just is. People who win hate to fucking lose more than they like to win. Losing will tear you up inside. Winning is just a relief. Once you understand that, and once you're aware of that, I think you give yourself the chance to build a high-performance culture. Now, I'm not saying you should never have fun. I'm not saying that you should create a work environment that is never fun and it's all work and it's no play. But sometimes I feel like people talk about culture and they're building a culture, but they're not building a winning culture. Now, I would rather win because I hate to lose. Some people want to create a culture of fun. Sometimes fun is what you're all about. And I'm not here to say that you can't build that kind of culture. I'm here to talk about building championship culture, championship teams. What we had to do to be ranked 4th in the nation, to be the first BCS busting team in the history, really wasn't that fun. Because once our last game in 2003 happened, which was on New Year's Day, it was the Liberty Bowl, we literally had 2 weeks off, and then we started winter conditioning. And from that first day of winter conditioning, all we talked about was being ready and doing everything we could to be the best Utah football team in history the very next year. We tried not to get ahead of ourselves. We tried not to talk about things that were out of our control. But we could feel this sort of pressure. We knew we were good. We knew what we could do. But from that first day of winter conditioning, we fucking went hard. Winter conditioning turned into spring ball. Spring ball turned into summer conditioning. Summer conditioning turned into training camp. Training camp turned into the season. And week after week, Saturday after Saturday, every win that we compiled was just a check mark on our way to doing what we set out to do, and that was to win a championship. So some teams want to create a fun culture. I'm telling you right now, and anybody that was a part of that team, it was fucking fun in the end to say that we were champions. But that day-to-day stuff that we had to do for a full year, that people quit. People quit because that culture, that high-performance winning culture, that championship culture, some people couldn't fucking take it. And they couldn't take it because it was hard. So at some point, when we talk about culture, you have to understand what you're trying to create. This high-performance winning culture has been a part of me since I got to live it back in 2004. It's really hard for me to go to the other side, to go to a culture of fun, a culture of kumbaya, a culture of we're all friends, we want to party together, we want to do all this stuff together. I want a culture of winning. Now, I want to paint the right picture though for all of you who are listening to this. After we won games, we went out together. We celebrated. We did have fun. For the people that stuck around, we were close. That culture was so strong because what we went through, nobody outside of our circle could understand what we were going through, how hard the practices were, how hard our coaches were on us every single day. So the people that stuck around became really close. That culture inside of the team was fucking strong. But it wasn't fun. It wasn't that fun culture. And the point I'm trying to make here is that when you talk about culture, you have to understand what you want to build. In the end, winning a championship is fun. In the end, I can take out that championship ring. We're getting inducted into the Hall of Fame 15 years later this year, and we can smile and be proud as fuck about what we accomplished. And the stories, we can look back and just think how funny some of the moments were and everything, but I'm telling you, the day-to-day, what we had to do to be a part of that high-performance culture wasn't all that fun. It was fun in certain moments when we won week after week after week. It's not that winning isn't fun. Winning is fun. I'm just telling you that losing, for some of you who get me, understand that losing sticks with you a lot longer than that really fun winning part gives you for a couple hours, maybe a day, and then you're concentrating on the next week. So I guess my biggest question to you, as a leader, as a coach, is what type of culture are you trying to build? Are you trying to build something that's fun, something that, you might have more wins than you have losses, but you're not going to be the best? Or are you trying to create that high performance fucking winning championship type culture that you can talk about for the rest of your life because you did it? And whether it's business or sport, it's the same thing. I was a part of you see the Raiders jerseys, for those who are watching this on video, you see the Raiders jerseys sandwiching that Utah jersey. Those Raider jersey years, we went 2-14, 4-12, 4-12 in my 3 years in Oakland. That was a different type of culture. That culture was not a high performance culture. But let me tell you something that was way less fun than doing what we had to do to build that championship culture. Fucking losing 14 games, losing 12 games. Because like I said, the feeling that losing gives you, if you're a high performer, if you're a person who cares, that loss will stick with you and eat at you. And when you start stacking 14 and 12, that's a lot harder than actually doing what it takes to build that championship culture. It's a lot harder to deal with. I'd rather do what we did in those Utah years and practice our asses off and do everything we possibly could have. Not always fun, but to create something that we could be proud of. So my biggest question to you is, are you willing to create that culture of winning? Because some of the people, it's not going to be for. Some of your employees, some of your teammates, maybe you're a high school football coach, some of the kids, it's not going to be for. Because the day-to-day stuff is too much. The day-to-day stuff, they're going to create stories in their minds about why this isn't fun and why it's not worth it. Because they aren't the people who want to have the feeling that winning championships give you. Winning championships stay with you forever. I can talk about winning championships today and think back to right after the Fiesta Bowl was over, wearing a sombrero and having fireworks go off and thinking that everything I did for that last year, for my whole life, was worth it. Completely 100% worth it. No matter how much I wanted to quit during the day-to-day stuff, no matter how hard it seemed, the feeling you get at the end when you do something you can be proud of trumps everything. So I want you to think about that when you're deciding what type of culture you really want, because there's different types of culture. Creating a high-performance championship culture is super hard. Here's the framework, though, if you're willing to go the distance, that I use when talking about culture. There's 4 C's for creating that championship culture. The first one is captain. Whether it's work, whether it's sport, who's steering the ship? Somebody has to lead. Somebody has to be the guy or the guys or the girls who are gonna lead the movement for the rest of the people to follow when shit gets hard. The championship culture from my 2004 team started from the top. Urban Meyer was all about creating that championship culture. He didn't care if you couldn't take it or not. He created the vision. The captain, the person who's leading, has to create this vision that everybody else can believe in and can start to see themselves. And that vision has to be big. Because again, if your team, if your employees, if the team you're working on can't see that vision and can't feel it during the day-to-day, they're not going to do what it takes. So Urban was a centerpiece in that captain role. He was the coach. In addition to that, your key players, there's going to be key players or key team members who also, figuratively speaking, will wear that captain jersey. Who's the captains on your team? If you're in an organization, who are those people who's going to relay the main captain's message? Has to be strong. That vision has to be cast by that one person, that one coach, and the main little key players have to relay that vision. Because number two, the second C in championship cultures is the community or the team. We're going to keep it C word so you can remember. The first one is captains, could be coach. The second one is community or the team. What are the core belief systems of the community or team? They have to be common. They have to have common goals. They have to have and share that common vision that's coming from the top. If they're not willing to do what it takes to win, to reach the ultimate vision, then they got to go. Because if they're not steering in the same direction that the majority is, they're holding you back. I always think about it like a boat and people rowing. If one person is rowing in the wrong direction, that fucker's got to go. That person is not a part of your community. That person is not a part of your culture. The belief systems aren't in alignment. That doesn't mean that every single person has to have the same political beliefs, the same belief systems in general. But for the main quest, for the vision that this team or this company is going, they better share the same belief systems when it comes to creating and achieving that main vision. Now, the third C in creating this championship culture is competition or being competitive. Because you're not going to win with a bunch of people who don't care about fucking winning. You're only going to win is if you have your whole organization that has their eyes on the prize and they fucking care about winning. They care about the results. In my case, in my gym or in my coaching program, they better care about winning in their fucking fitness, because if they don't care, I don't care. If they don't care, they have no place in the community, because if they don't care and they're not competitive, if they don't want to fucking win, they're bringing the culture backwards. And again, you can't have people going in opposite directions. It slows you down. And the last one, the last C, number 4, the fourth C of creating a championship culture. Being consistent. It's not about how good you are once in a while. It's about how good you are all the time. This happens in teams all the time. The reason I like to bring sport and life and fitness together is because in certain aspects, you can see this very clearly. In sport, you see the teams who are all of a sudden, if we're talking about college football, will beat a top 10 team and the next week drop to a team that they should beat 9 times out of 10. It doesn't matter if you're only good once in a while. It matters how good you are all the time. That comes with consistency. The community has to be consistent. Your teammates have to be consistent. Your employees have to be consistent. Consistency has to be built into this championship culture. They can't come in one day up on top of the world and then the next day down in the dumps. That volatility will kill a championship culture. Championship cultures are built with consistency. If you think about the New England Patriots, it looks like they have a lot of fun because at the end of the day, winning's more fun than losing, and winning championships stays with you forever. But I'm here to tell you there's a lot of guys that aren't a part of that championship culture for a reason. Because I already know that the day-to-day grind, what they have to do, the amount of pressure they're getting from Belichick and the amount of pressure that they're getting from Tom Brady to be consistent on an everyday basis is too much for some. The pressure is just too much for them to live up to. So those people are gone and they have a small culture of people who are their main community, their main team, who all have the same belief systems. And Belichick and Tom Brady cast that vision. And if they don't share that vision, they're out. So when you create this culture, the whole point of this show, and I hope you share it if you are in business, if you're trying to create culture in whatever ways you think it's important, I want you to really think about what type of culture you want to create. Are you willing to create a championship culture that's not fun all the time? Or is having a culture of fun and freedom and maybe a little bit more losses than the championship culture more important to you? As a leader, you're going to get to decide how you want to create that culture. And here's the other thing. If you don't create it, it'll create itself. So as a leader, you got to watch out for that too. My advice, if you're like me, winning championships is worth it. Do whatever you have to do day to day to create that championship culture, because at the end of the day, that's a lot more fun than stacking up losses with a culture of mediocrity.
Thank you so much for joining us for another amazing episode of The Show with John Madsen. The greatest compliment that you could give us is liking, loving, and sharing this episode with all of your friends. So please go to iTunes, leave us a 5-star rating and review, and then share it online with everyone that you know. Make sure to tag John as well. He loves to hear from listeners of the show. The links for all of his socials and iTunes are in the show notes. Also, if you'd like to engage John for anything related to his coaching, consulting, or programs, please visit johnmadsen.com for everything you'd need to know on how to engage with John offline. And lastly, thank you for your time, your attention, and your consideration. This is The Show.